We'll never know.
Thanks for coming. A couple comments about Western Michigan. Champion efforts, much better performance on offense still. We had about 5, I want to say at least 6 underthrown deep balls, which is very uncharacteristic of our quarterbacks, and that's something that we're going to work extremely hard on. The good thing is that we stretched the field. I mean, we're behind them. Every one of those times we're behind them, we're underthrown. But the offensive line played much better. Perimeter blocking was much better. Wide receivers who graded a champion were Michael Thomas and Corey Smith. Corey Smith played really hard on special teams as well. Running backs consistently, Zeke is as good as there is. Also had a hit city as far as a great effort blocking downfield. But he graded out 90%, playing at a very high level. Offensive line, we had 3 champions: Jacoby Boren, Billy Price, and Taylor Decker. And the first-time champion is Marcus Ball, and he's starting to get some more playing time. Co-players of the game were Curtis Samuel, who was dynamic, and Pat Elfline, who played one of his better games as player of the game. On defense, not as many champions. High expectations in that regard. We're a little bit disappointed in the overall performance. They hit some very well-thrown balls on us, and we just have to play a little better. Champions were Joey Bosa. Player of the game was Adolphus Washington, and we had 2 honorable mention guys, Josh Perry and Gary on, but obviously need to have more champion efforts on defense. So Big Ten season starts this week on the road at Indiana. Renewed focus, as the ultimate goal is to compete for a championship in November, and that comes to fruition this week. So I'll answer any questions for you.
Third row left, James.
Yeah, Coach. 3 years ago, you went to Indiana, your first season. You gave up 49 points on defense. How different is this defense from that year, and how much do you remember from that game?
That was one of the few times I've ever seen a defense quit playing hard, and that was a problem. That was a program changer. That was, mistakes are one thing, but when I saw what I saw, that was not a good moment. I remember it very well, and I think we're up by 3 or 4 scores, and they just came back, recovered an onside kick, and so that was a game changer as far as how we approach. If you don't play hard, you're not going to play.
Second row left, Ari. Coach, you have 2016 recruiting class that's almost full, and 2017 is halfway full at this point. I was wondering, how does your game day throughout the season change if you have far less official visitors than usual? Like if you have a game that you don't have a ton of visitors at? I mean,
well, Saturday's tough. Sunday's the hard day. Saturday, because we don't change much. We maybe after the game go hook up with them afterwards, but a lot of times they don't. The last people they want to see is us. They want to go out with the players and just be around the team. But Sundays, where if we have 3 or 4, it's terrible. It's you're meeting with the guys all day long instead of working on your next opponent. So that's something we've always addressed, and I want to say we had a cut 1 or 2 this year, but so it's I would imagine Penn State and Michigan State, you would see some big crowds coming for that one.
You don't have as many coming through for as many games as you usually do. Is it easier for you guys? Are there benefits for on the field, for your team? And do you get up for games more when there's some big time guys on the sideline usually?
I have no idea. We're just trying to get a first down and make sure we execute our punt and kickoff and all that. So that, I think, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but until you said it, I haven't really thought about it. We're used to having a couple guys, and the big games you usually get a handful of guys, and you have to deal with it and do the best you can. But Saturday is not the day that's the problem. Saturday, you go about your business. They might have dinner with your hotel, and that's it. Sunday is the day that transition. It's completely different when you have 4 or 5, especially if you have 4 or 5, and I've had like 5, even 7 guys visit, and your whole day is shot. And, it just bleeds into Monday, then Tuesday, so you get behind a little bit. But that's part of the business, especially if you want to showcase your stadium, and we try to do that, especially from out-of-towners.
Front row middle, Dave.
Coach, Cardale looked locked in on a lot of the intermediate routes. He was really throwing some darts out there, but he underthrew a lot of deep balls, obviously. As you broke down the film, as you have conversed with him, like, what are you telling him? You tell him to kind of just cut it loose, or what are you telling Cardale?
Well, he didn't. Fundamentally, he wasn't sound. Fundamentally, he wasn't transition. The weight transfer to back to front, dragging his back leg, and that's Tim Beck, and they'll work at it in great. And then JT underthrew one too. And JT, if you remember, early last year had struggled with that, and then he started throwing beautiful deep balls. So it's just something got to work on. And but you could see certainly not arm strength. It's just the fundamental flaw of not being able to weight transfer and driving the ball. Because he threw, he had one of his better days throwing now. When the underneath, the 2-minute drills, some of those were just rocket shots he was throwing, and very aggressive and fundamentally right on it. It's the deep balls and it was alarming, right? I want to say at least 6. I should have that number for you, but at least 6 balls that, that was a 518-yard day. Those are those days. If you hit those, it's a big day.
Tim Beck having more responsibilities up in the press box. Are you comfortable with that? How did you feel like that went?
Went much better, yeah. And I think Tim's just transitioning, and I knew what happened. And but Ed, I thought, did a really good job. And the thing to always keep in mind is, when I had Dan Mullen always had Steve Adazio. When I had Tom Herman always had Ed Warner, and now Ed's got to have Tim, and Tim's doing a fine job. It just anytime there's fluidity on your staff, you need more consistency.
Lori?
Coach, at this point in the season, how much are you trying to react to what the defenses give you as opposed to imposing your own will? And is that something that's constant from season to season, or does it change with your personnel?
Very good question. Early in the season, you're always, and bowl games, you're always a little bit on your heels to start the game to see what's new. This time of year, you start to transition because teams are going to play. You can't really change your defense. Sometimes if there's a bye week that, you have to be on guard. Western played pretty much what we thought they would play, a little more zone coverage than, they were an 80% man team, and they were about 10% man against us. So but as far as the front and everything, there wasn't much of a transition. So, and we made a decision last week. We went with a lot of tempo, a lot of speed to try to get clean defenses, and it worked pretty good.
Indiana, I think, is still using their 3-4 defense. Is that?
No, their first game they did. In the last 3 games, they were all 4-3. So first game they had some difficulties in their first game, but they've gone all to 4-3 defense the last 3 games.
You feel like you have that solved, though? Whatever the issue was?
Never have it solved. Never. And when a coach says, there's John Cooper in the back, is that right, John? When a coach says he has it solved, that's a problem, because that's a joke. No, we do not have it solved.
Front row right. Austin?
Michael Thomas has shown a pretty remarkable ability to get his feet down in bounds and some difficult throws. I don't know if that'd be too difficult to rank him, but where is that ability stack up with some other guys you've had?
Our receiver coach will probably take credit for that, but he's outstanding at it. He does a good job. He does it in practice. He has a very good awareness of where the field is, where he's at, and he's playing at a very high level.
You were a receivers coach. Maybe you want to take credit for it, but are there drills that you can do, or is that just something that he has to come by naturally?
Yeah, there's drills, but it's more we move around the field quite often. We spend a lot of time in the red zone. And so, he knows that position of the field very well. And if you notice, he's usually our boundary receiver, so he's very accustomed to that position. But there's also, a lot of it's on him, because I have other guys that just happen to be out of bounds a lot. He's very aware where the end line is.
Far left. Matt?
I want to ask you about Zeke. He's had 3 hurdles over guys in 2 weeks. How do you react when you see him do that? Do you ever worry, God, you're going to hurt yourself?
Well, one would have been a legit Sports Center play if we would have finished the block by the wideout. It was out. I mean, that was a great job by Zeke. Zeke is playing, it's disappointing we don't have enough hits for him yet, because he's playing at a very high level. He's tough. He's playing hard without the ball. And, the expectation, I guess, after last year, what's wrong, why aren't they using Zeke? I get that question, what's wrong with Zeke? I think, what's wrong with Zeke? Zeke's playing fantastic. But a lot of his big hits last year were the perimeter blocking. It was a little bit better. This week was one of our better ones. It's still not to the degree it was last year.
I want to ask you quick, the end of half sequence with the runoff at the end. Is there anything from a coaching standpoint, you talked to Cardale about?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he had to get rid of the ball, otherwise the half's over too. But what did you see?
No, in those situations, and we actually covered in meeting time yesterday. We had 2 plays, and we were being a little aggressive at the end there to take one more shot, and if it's not there, throw it away immediately. And he hung on it too long. It wasn't there. Throw it away. And it was a correct call. He was in the pocket, and so that was just a situation. I'm glad it came up. It's something we've covered before on the practice field. And to answer your question, the coaching is we're going to take a shot. I think it was 8 seconds left. Take the shot. If it's not there, burn it, kick the field goal, and get out of there. Well, other than that part of the drive, I thought he did very well. The receivers, protection, quarterback, was right down the field.
Front row right. Tim?
Yeah, Urban, a couple of things. Number one, Joel Hill, I think, ran onto the field with the rose in his hand last Michigan game, and a lot of people thought that was the last game. He decided to come back. What do you, I don't know, what about him stands out as far as you're concerned? You seem to have liked him his whole career here.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players. He's a guy that loves Ohio State. He's one of the toughest guys on the team. He's a guy that is an inspiration, pushes guys, grind guys. In the offseason, he's one of Coach Mick's favorite guys. So, you know, I believe he should coach someday. He knows how I feel about that. He certainly has a position here if he wants it. That's how strong everyone feels about him here.
The other thing, previous game, y'all, I'm trying to remember 2 or 3 passes maybe max y'all threw over the middle or into the intermediate middle. Saturday y'all threw a lot there and stuff. Did y'all address that, or is it just what the defense presented? What was sort of behind that?
It's all, whenever you see that, Tim, it's what the defense presents itself. You know, so when I hear people say, throw it down the middle, like, well, if the middle's covered, you're not going to throw it down the middle. They played a quarters defense, which exposed the middle of the field, and we were much more aggressive. We threw the ball 33 times and should actually thrown it more. And threw for 288, and that was should have been a 350-yard day.
That's what I was going to say. You talked all week about being more aggressive and stuff. Did you see that Saturday?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
And what does that mean to you? Does it mean throwing more, or what does it mean?
Well, it means I challenged the offensive skill to go do their jobs, and they played pretty well. You know, it wasn't perfect, and obviously when you have that many underthrown passes, that's, you know, I guess if you had to pick your evils, if you are not executing down the field throws because your guys can't get open, that's a major problem. That's a recruiting error, effort error, or something, and that wasn't the problem. Underthrown balls are just a matter, especially if you can do it, just a matter of execution.
Front row left. Doug?
Urban, when you have a team that was playing so well, and I guess I'm talking offensively at the end of last year, I know every year's a new season, but how much do you sort of expect there to be some carryover when you do have a lot of guys back, or do you just really think each year is completely new, or when you have veterans, do you think, oh yeah, we kind of got this, we can just keep rolling?
Oh, I would expect, you know, a little bit better. Well, our first game was pretty good, pretty high-end execution. We had two games that we didn't perform very well offensively, and that happens. If there's a critique on our offense over the last 13, 14 years, whatever it's been, it's the early in the season funk that you're in sometimes, and a lot of it's because of the maybe new defenses, or you take a couple of key players out of that lineup for us. Jeff Harmon was a real guy. You take Darryl Baldo now line, and there's a little bit of growing pains. So I would have expected us to play a little bit better, but I hope no one here felt a sense of panic. It's normal growing pains for early in 2015.
Dan, you talked a lot. You just mentioned Dan Mullen and Tom and the offensive coordinators you've had in your career. I don't know if you can just sort of maybe explain a little more. As an offensive coach, how important still is that offensive coordinator in what you're doing? And maybe if you can compare it to the defensive side of the ball.
I think that's important to understand it. When we say offensive coordinator here, it's coordinating an offense that's in. Does that make sense? Where if you hire someone and say, okay, bring your system, let's take 2 years, the system's here, and the system's not going anywhere. So we hire people to coach our system, and it's not a dictatorship where this is the way we're doing it. No, this is the way we've done it, and this is the way we're going to make it better. And so it's a very unique situation here. You know, we don't hire coordinators to come in and say, hey, let's let's enhance it and make it better. And that's where I think Tom was so valuable. Tom added a lot of elements. Ed Warner's been phenomenal, enhancing as the line coach co-coordinator. And Tim Beck is slowly bringing his, his added to make it better. So it's much different here than, when coaches make transitional coordinator changes, a lot of times, and you see a mess. When you see 3 offense coordinators, they come in and bring their own systems, that's why they say that darn quarterback is playing bad. The quarterback's playing bad. They have 3 different systems in 3 years. The good thing about JT and Cardell, they've been in the same, it's not changing.
Just to follow up, is that ever hard in hiring guys? Are there some guys who would want to come in, like when you were hiring Tim Beck? Are there some guys maybe who would have taken that job and said, no, I
think people know. That's a good, I think when I really thought about it back in, whenever I was hired here, 2012, about bringing in, some guys were calling me, and I was like, very good coaches. And I thought, but that's not who we're going to be. Here's what we're going to do, and that's when I put the laser lights on Tom, because I thought he'd be the perfect guy.
And final set of questions, Bill?
This is related a little bit to Doug's first question. The motto inside there is the grind. A lot of people, for you and coaches, it's always a grind. So maybe you're not the best person to answer this, but does it feel like more of a grind this year than maybe you thought it might?
Oh, I imagine you're leading to that the fact that there's expectations are so high. I think that's natural. Yeah, I can tell you no, but I think so. I think you're winning just pretty soundly, playing pretty good, and expectation level. You say, well, back when you played Alabama, back when you played, I know, but this is a different team, different time, and that's where I'm really trying not to let that happen. And that's a lot of it's on me, and I can't let it become that. I can tell you victory meals are great. Our kids, someone said we've had, I can't remember how many out of how many victory meals, and they're still very good, and we still want to continue having them. So I'm not going to let that, and that's my job. I'm watching that very closely.
And a question about Raekwon. He had 16 tackles. After the game, he said, well, I missed 4. Where is he in his development right now? Yeah,
we, interior of our defense, we're exposed a little bit. And so that's something that's going to be a lot of our emphasis right now. We had man coverage a couple. That quarterback threw some great balls, back shoulder throws, and then that deep ball to that 2 really good receivers that our Michigan State, I guess, talked to our coaches and the Western Michigan group. That kid's going to be playing on the tall one, 84, I think his number was. It's a very good player, and the other guy's a very good player. And they made some good throws and caught some balls on us. That wasn't as alarming as the fact that you saw that running back separate our defense a couple times, and that's very happy, yeah. And I think it's more the defensive interior players along with the linebackers. We just have to get a little bit better.
Coach,
thank you guys.